This is the Depth Mystic Community Podcast, episode 50. And it just so happens to coincide with the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country, the United States of America. What do you have to say about that, Jungian Depth Mystic Zach Tolan? Well, it wasn't going to be a big deal to me, but a number of things happened that made me swell with pride at our country. Oh yeah, what happened? Why do you have pride in your country? Well, I mean, as a rule, people should have some kind of pride in their country. It's healthy to have patriotism in general. It protects the country from being taken over by hostile or evil interests, to have a general patriotism for our country. But that's not good enough for a depth mystic. I mean, I need deep philosophical reasons to be proud. Right, so what are they? Well, first of all, let's acknowledge the World Cup brought over a bunch of foreigners, and you can experience a lot of their amazing testimony about how awesome our country is. Like, they're crying. They fell in love with our country. This German guy, some people gave him a ride home from the stadium, and then when he had to leave, he's crying. I can't believe the people are so nice. And then other foreigners were testifying to the food, and I don't know, it was awesome. But there's more. Oh, go on. I mean, I wasn't planning on necessarily starting out this podcast with the celebration of the 4th of July, but I guess it is apropos, so maybe we should start there. Well, some slightly deeper stuff also made me swell with pride. It's why I feel like I can't ignore it. I can't just move on. Yes, and Professor Jordan Peterson exemplifies the consideration that also made me happy. And he's not the only one talking about this, but he made a really good tweet that summarized it very eloquently. Basically, it turns out our country is the only country in the world that embraces success in people, in random people. In other words, it's optimistic about random people's ability to try new things and succeed at them. And I guess I just didn't realize that we were the only country in the whole world that doesn't suck, in other words. What do you mean doesn't suck? Well, according to him and many others, every other country in the world more or less frowns upon anyone who succeeds. They have this syndrome called the tallest poppy syndrome, which means that anyone who shows signs of talent, ability, success, anyone who looks like they're getting richer than anyone else is looked upon with suspicion. And I guess Americans don't realize that that's actually true everywhere else in the whole world, other than their own country. That anyone who succeeds is looked upon with suspicion. Now, of course, we do sometimes look upon types of success with suspicion increasingly, but as a general rule, we're reversed. We are the only city, the shining city on the hill, as Jordan Peterson calls it. I mean, it's amazing. So there's that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's nice to be reminded of that. I mean, first of all, as you were saying, that a lot of the foreigners that came over for the World Cup sort of fell in love with the country. Like, they thought it would just be a bunch of criminals or something because of what they were told by the news and everything. Then they realized it was completely different. So that's amazing. And then, as you said, we support people who succeed. We just have a natural impulse to appreciate and value people who achieve stuff. We believe it's possible, and we recognize and appreciate it when it happens. Who knew that that was so rare? So is that the whole of our 250-year celebration for the Depth Mystic community? Well, no, there's one slightly more esoteric or nuanced thing. I want to compliment an AI-generated song that was so good that it inspired me. And it's rare for things in pop culture to be good enough that I kind of get uplifted and inspired. So I wanted to talk about that too. Is that so? So where did you find the song? Well, I mean, I was on Twitter which has a new name, but I forget what it's called. And Elon Musk tweets the song. And he has like the biggest account on Twitter because he literally owns it. But his account's still pretty good. So he tweeted this song, and it's completely AI generated. It's totally fake, but totally awesome. In other words, it generates the video that in ages past would have taken time, energy, and commitment from a large team of people to put together. But the AI just does it instantly. And there's all sorts of pretty girls, but the video is definitely made by a dude. But, since the AI can make it be sung by pretty girls, it's sung by pretty girls. Okay, so what is the song? It's called Sweet Land. And it really addresses the paradox that we're living in right now, which is that America is still the best country. It's still reason to be optimistic and cheer and everything, except at the same time, there's so many doubts, so many causes for pessimism. Oh, and also the idea that there's this high-level war between elite factions in the military-industrial complex. I don't know. It's a very complicated idea. And this song sort of hints at this complicated idea that I don't want to go into. But if anybody has ever followed Q or the whole QAnon thing, this song is kind of reminiscent of that. But long story short, it's a really good song that actually moved me. And I should give a nod to pop culture when it successfully makes me kind of excited and interested in something that comes out. I guess we'll just link to the song then. I don't think you really covered it in detail, but you give them a few hints, and I guess we can link to the Jordan Peterson quote and the song that you're talking about. And maybe just let people know that this inspired you, even if you didn't make it perfectly clear why. Anyway, so happy 250th birthday to America. My recent uplift is partly due to my realization that America still carries essential spiritual messages and values for the world. The emergence of philosophy and values is not evenly distributed across the globe. It's not like ancient Greece just appeared everywhere at the same time. No, ancient Greece was a unique phenomenon that completely transformed everything we understand about what it means to be human. And it only happened in ancient Greece one time. And it only needed to happen one time, technically, because once it happened there, a lot of those ideas were able to spread. But as it turns out, America would appear to be somewhat similar in terms of certain core values, especially the ones that our founding fathers had about human rights. But it also transferred itself into the culture in like a deep way. It also doesn't hurt that we're a land of such natural wealth that we're not hurting for money, as it were. We're not hurting for resources. But that wouldn't be enough by any stretch. What really matters from a philosophical point of view is, has any core foundational knowledge and understanding about what it really means to be human arisen in a certain place? And the answer in our case is yes. There is certain core knowledge and understanding about the very nature of what a human being is that took root in America, which is why America stands as the only country, even to this day, as it turns out, that represents that piece of core knowledge. And so it remains our job to keep spreading that, or at least maybe to start spreading that, insofar as other aspects of our empire have made it difficult to spread that message, since we do contradict ourselves. But at any rate, it's what Carl Jung would call pieces of the collective unconscious. Different nations possess different pieces of wisdom about what it means to be human and what's possible as a human. And we need to become aware of that and recognize it and propagate it so that that knowledge spreads everywhere. And likewise, if you go to India or Japan or many other places, there is such knowledge. There are pieces of knowledge about what it means to be human and what's possible. But I didn't sort of realize we're sitting on a pot of gold here in America. That's pretty cool. We usually kind of pass by what other people consider rather important events and dates without being particularly good at praising them. But this one, some kind of glitch in the matrix, caused us to actually be proud of our country on its 250th anniversary. Okay, so what else did I write down? Another idea I had for this week. We have several ideas for this week. This could be a good show. So I wrote down this phrase, Eden money, like the Garden of Eden money, versus not Eden money. Why did I write that down? Jungian depth mystic Zach Tolan. Oh, that's an idea that I had earlier this week. It's a phrase that kind of encapsulates an idea. What it speaks to is the psychological effects that money has on people and how difficult it is for the conscientious person to use money and not feel some kind of contamination or guilt or shame associated with dealing with money. Because I, as a mystic, but also as a kind of minimalist who has generally avoided issues of money whenever possible in my life, I've never at all had a lust for gathering money. And I'm not alone. You know, like all these communists that run around talking about overthrowing capitalism, I think they feel the same emotion, but obviously can be channeled into bad places. And this actually might be related to America a little bit, since America has innovations in terms of like what it means to be successful, as I was talking about before. Okay, slow down. So why would you come up with the phrase Eden money? Well, Eden money is a kind of hypothesis because so many aspects of money are tinged with guilt for me. Take, for example, the fact that we're on Social Security disability. Where does that money come from? Well, it comes from the government. But where does the government get it? Well, it gets it from collecting tax. And how did the people from whom that tax is collected feel about it? We don't know. Some of them probably resent it. Others are probably okay with it, happy to support the Social Security program. But they have all range of feelings. But at least some of those dollars that you get from Social Security were given by somebody who resents having to do it, would prefer to keep those dollars for him or herself. So part of that money is tainted. At least part of it is tainted. And so it's not Eden money. Are you saying that Eden has something to do with innocence? Yeah, like the Garden of Paradise. Imagine Adam and Eve walking around naked in the Garden of Paradise, and there's fruit everywhere and food everywhere. Everything just is sort of there, and there's no shame in it at all. And my hypothesis is that the kind of money I would want to get is Eden money. I don't pursue money, and I'm glad that for a long period of my life, the whole issue of where my money's going to come from has been taken care of. But I do acknowledge that this is a tax that people who work have to give involuntarily. And so it is shaded with guilt. Even this is not pure or innocent. And I don't want to pretend that it is. But think about this, like the alternative is for me to make money myself by providing a good or a service or simply soliciting donations. So suppose I were to make the exact same amount of money that I get from Social Security, but I made it from people who appreciate and love me. Well, that's dollars coming out of the pockets of people I know rather than out of total strangers. It still feels bad. And so I'm trying to think of, well, what kind of money could I receive that wouldn't feel bad? And what I was realizing was it would have to be luxury money, a surplus of money that somebody else got from somewhere they weren't guilted into giving the money, to donating. It was more like they actually make enough money that they accumulate a surplus. And for whatever reason, out of the kindness of their heart, or because I'm offering merchandise or something, they willingly donate to my thing. Now, how did they make their money? Suppose they made it through dubious means. Well then, while they had extra money and they were glad to give it to me, what if the people who they got it from weren't glad to give it to them? Well, then it's still tainted. It's still tainted with those people would rather have not given that money. Now, I guess if you're a totally honorable person, you do a perfectly honorable business and you provide goods and services and people voluntarily pay the price that you're offering and they don't feel like they have no choice in the matter, as if you're the only one offering the thing and you're not ripping them off. The point is, I don't necessarily know if the people who would donate the money to me would have themselves received that surplus money from sources that were happy to donate it to them. But if they did, and if you could follow the chain of all the money, and everyone was happy to be obtaining the good or service, or happy to be donating to the charity in question, well, then that would be Eden money. Eden money that was completely free from that negative feeling, which is, I think, why communists, and lots of other people too, like Christians, people who have a weird relationship with money, who don't really have a comfortable relationship with it. Let's put it that way. These are the kind of people who would say money is the root of all evil. Eden money is, what kind of money could you get that was totally consistent with all of your values? And that doesn't even talk about the weird psychology people have internally. Most people will look for bargains if they can. And they won't stop to think that the person who was charging a higher rate might have really valued making the sale. For example, if some cheap goods come from China and they're only 10% cheaper, most people will buy the thing as 10% cheaper and put the legit American business out of business just because they can't not take the cheaper thing if the cheaper thing is offered to them. Even if it ruins all of the world by doing so. People's ideas about wanting to protect their money, to not give more than they have to towards anything that they're looking at, just the psychology of money taints it. It makes it feel bad. And I think that's why there's this dichotomy between people who end up being socialists and people who want to be capitalists. Now, socialists, don't get me wrong, they want to steal your money too. I mean, they love to take other people's money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the core sentiment of people who want to deal with money versus people who get the ick. They just feel like money is this weird, uncomfortable thing. And maybe I'm in a minority, but I've never really wanted a lot of money, and I've never put in a lot of energy into getting it. But even people who are poor, who you wouldn't think would be in favor of capitalism, they still hoard money. They still penny pinch, and every single opportunity to spend, they will spend it on the cheapest possible thing, and they won't really trouble themselves about why the thing they're buying is the cheapest possible thing, like what kind of things happened in order to make that cost so much less. But I feel guilty about it all. I feel the burden of shame in every aspect when I'm dealing with money, which is why I don't like to deal with money and why I hardly ever want it. I mean, I understand it as an essential technology, indispensable to basically every aspect of civilization. Every nook and cranny of civilization uses money in one way or another. Okay, obviously there's so much to what you're saying, and maybe the phrase itself is the central organizing principle. Calling it Eden money is a way of suggesting what it might be like if a certain kind of money really was totally without taint. It was money always voluntarily and happily given. It's like the money had to be happily given. You couldn't feel resentful about having to spend the money. Because then that person had a bad feeling that you now accumulated and then gave to me. Every link in the chain had to be happily given. But so many people are resentful when they spend their money. So how much money is possibly Eden money? How much could possibly be not somewhat resentful when it's being spent? You get it. That's why I have this idea. What kind of money could be totally free from original sin? How could I get off disability without feeling like I'm just taking money from people? And maybe I'm providing a service, but I'm also making them give me money in exchange. And who knows, like, do they want that money for something else? Do they resent having to give it to me? Is there any way we can have a psychology of money where people are just happy instead of penny pinching and resentful? It's like a whole domain of psychology that we can't even cover in one episode. But it would be kind of cool if we could. The archetypal psyche of money. The characteristic ways a human being's psychology is transformed when it has to deal with issues of money as opposed to other forms of value. Okay, maybe we'll have another episode on that down the line somewhere. But I guess for now we'll stick with this hypothetical concept that there is some kind of pure, innocent money where we could actually make a living with money that everyone who ever had that money was happy to be giving it to the person that they gave it to in exchange for whatever they got. All right, what else have we got? Here's a little commentary. Looks like you wrote down that there's a disparity in artificial intelligence and the way it's working out for people. Yeah, this has nothing to do with depth mysticism at all. It's just like a critique of the artificial intelligence revolution. And I guess the big issue here is somebody's building all these giant computer centers that are housing these massive artificial intelligence programs. And I guess the criticism is that there's something like 40-1 in terms of the amount of capital investment versus the amount of profit they're actually making on the computers and the data centers. Okay, this is like totally random. This is like a totally arbitrary topic. I mean, you really want to shoehorn this one into the same episode? You know, the 250th anniversary? Episode 50? You want to shoehorn this AI stuff into it? Yeah, well, yes. But only because I'm hoping I can just make the point quickly and we can move on. Okay, so have at it then. The obvious thing that is upsetting about the AI revolution is that these wealthy people who have never in their lives, at least from my observations, done anything altruistic just for the good of the public, are investing, hundreds of billions of dollars into creating these AI computers. And there's barely a fraction of that of revenue that they're actually generating. So why are they doing it? Any normal business, if you have an ice cream business, you would start by making your little ice cream and then selling it. You'd be profitable in a way from the get-go. That's how normal businesses function. And as an industry gets more developed, sometimes it takes a lot more capital investment in order to start generating a profit. If you're running the oil industry, to develop the drill and the refineries has turned into a really sophisticated thing that takes millions and millions of dollars that you have to pour into these projects to get modern facilities. But those are old industries. It didn't start that way. It started with you found some oil and you sold it and you made money and then you put that into making a little more oil. Like, those built up gradually over time. But AI, it's just like a bunch of super rich people made some kind of collective decision that they're going to dump all of their money and resources, including resources that people would rather have had for other purposes, such as It's so hard to buy a hard disk nowadays because it's already been bought up by the AI funders to be put into these random data centers they're putting everywhere. But it's like it came out of nowhere. They just decided this was going to be a profitable industry. They just decided this was going to be a thing. That's crazy. Who are these people? It's like I'm happy that people are discovering all sorts of uses for AI. But it's impossible for me not to notice that 100 times the total income of all of these people who are finding these amazing uses for AI has already been invested into the AI. They never could have afforded it in the first place. And that just bothers me. Okay, I think I see your point, and I think it's been made. I don't think you're the first person to make this point. But at least it's like a coherent point that I think you're making. So many little guys are finding all manner of amazing uses for AI, up to and including companionship and psychotherapy, which is one of the most interesting and intimate possible uses for AI. It's even frowned upon by the very people who created that people should be using them as companions and psychotherapists. But it is one of the uses for which I cannot conceive of a financial remuneration involved with it. Like individual people paying a little fee to use the computers that help their companion run, justifying the expense of having to build these giant mega data centers that run them. Financially, it makes no sense to me. So anyway, that's my little commentary about AI I wanted to shoehorn in here. And that's going to do it for episode 50, the 250th anniversary. Yeah, episode 50. We will see you next week.